It gives me a lot of joy to at least discuss a little bit about this profound sutra. Many of you have sacrificed your weekend. There's probably a lot better things to do than coming here early in the morning. But I guess it is a sacrifice that you have made. And if you have done it with a right motivation, I'm sure that's going to bring a lot of merit. Some of you may be here out of curiosity. Some of you may be here out of just curiosity. And some of you may be here because your friends have forced you or influenced you to be here. And that's also good. It gives me a bit of a pressure, but I guess that's a karmic debt I have to pay. And many of you may have come here because you think this might answer to many of your unanswered questions. Also, some of you may be here because you think this might give you a key to the happiness that we are all looking for. I must warn you that your expectation should not be that high. There may be some people who are here simply because you want to receive the blessing. Not so much of my blessing, but the blessing of the sutra. And as the sutra itself, Buddha himself mentioned several times, if you have an affinity with the Buddha Dharma, then it is believed that the Vajracchedika Sutra has so much blessing. But please, you must know, this is, if you go through this text, you will realize this is not a text. You see, some of you may be here thinking that this is a religious discourse. Therefore, there will be a lot of practical instructions such as what is the right thing to do and what is wrong thing to avoid. A religion is always associated with ethic and morality. And I think we can't help but have that kind of expectation from Buddhism also. I think it is human nature to have some kind of a conduct, some sort of a guideline. We long for some kind of a guideline for a social conduct. I have noticed that Vajracchedika Sutra is very popular among the Chinese Mahayana Buddhists. That is really wonderful. But this, I don't know so much about Chinese culture, but just a very vague example. Recently I've been reading Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching, and that's like a Vajracchedika Sutra, I think. But you see, I don't know, maybe I'm making a mistake, but I feel Chinese may love to read Tao Te Ching, but they like to dwell on Confucianist thinking because we long for conduct. A simple guideline, like if you do such and such, like many religion and many philosophical systems, like if you do such and such, like right view, right action, then you will be rewarded with this kind of attainment, such as being born in heaven and so forth. That's what we like to hear. Many times I feel that maybe Buddhism should be simplified. Like once a lifetime visit to Bodh Gaya as a Buddhist. As a Buddhist, one must not eat chicken, let's say, because the cows have been reserved by Hindus and the beef has been reserved by Hindus and pork has been reserved by Muslims. So I think we end up with a chicken. And I don't know, maybe 3 times of daily prayers, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and 1 at night. And that's it. That's Buddhism. I think we will have probably 100 times more Buddhists today in this earth than what we have. But unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, but Buddhism is not that simple. It is too much varieties, so much varieties. It's deep, it's vast, and it is infinite. The Subhuti, the narrator or the one who sort of initiates the dialogue in this sutra, he asked at one point, Chomdende, Maung bitu ngaja thamala tambishu rabdu number jibo juruana samjin kang lalada dida bitodi sikshabandila yangdabun dushi jabri jurba tachisam. In the degenerated time, in the future, will the people accept such a teaching? Can people really accept such kind of teaching? He asked that question, and Buddha said, how can you ask such a question? Yeah, those who are reading the sutra, you must recall this part. You know, there are many reasons Subhuti is right. His question is a very valuable question. I mean, his doubt when he asked, will the people understand this? Will the people not really understand? Can they accept this? That's a good doubt. It's a very valuable doubt. Because the things that you hear from here in the sutras are beyond ordinary conceptions. Now, mind you, don't think that these are beyond our conceptions because these are something divine, something very heavenly. It's nothing to do with that. Today, I'm going to concentrate more on introducing the sutra itself. Introducing the sutra itself. Sutra, as Chandrakirti said, explaining the sutra, one has to reach at least the first Bhumi Bodhisattva. So, please do not expect me to go word by word and explain. I am trying to extract some of the explanations from Asanga's commentary and Kamalashila's commentary. Anyway, why is, we were talking about why this subject of Vajrachedika is so difficult to accept. Because, in a concise form, Vajrachedika is saying that whole Dharma, Buddha Dharma, is basically like a placebo. But it's working, the placebo works. We have no doubt on that. And that's quite frightening to hear. To hear that a Dharma is a placebo. That is a very frightening to hear. Aren't you afraid? I am. Basically, the path is a deception. Our beloved path. The path, yes, it's a fake. It's something fake. Another religion can point finger at another religion. The one religion can point a finger to another religion and say, that religion is a cheat. But there is no path apart from Buddhism that says itself is a cheat. It's a very big statement. When Buddha said later, those who see me as a form they have a wrong view. You see, the ordinary readers immediately think, okay, then he must have another, behind our head, we always think that he must have another form. So not the form that is painted or cast or made out of wood or stone. Now, even though it is a deception, even though it is a placebo, it is a necessary placebo. It is a necessary deception. And why is that? Because we have all kinds of hang-ups, inhibitions, habitual patterns, and we have to cut them. Now, Vajra Chedika, Dorji Chepa in Tibetan, Dorji Chepa in Sanskrit, Vajra Chedika, I think there's many different way of translating. I have a feeling that many of the Chinese translation is more like a Vajra that cuts the deceptions. I think many of the Tibetan translation is a wisdom that cuts even the Vajra. Since I'm using the Tibetan translation, so I'm going to be based on the wisdom that even cuts the Vajra. So when we talk about cutting, we are talking about a problem, a shell or a form that needs to be cut. And there are many different kinds of habitual pattern. That problem is the habit. And there are many different levels of problems, different levels of habitual pattern. Some are as fragile as eggshell. A small knocking will do the trick. Some are very, very, very stubborn, like Indra's attribute, the Vajra. Vajra is actually, the diamond is what normally people use, but I don't know, maybe that's not really the right translation. But anyway, the Vajra is a substance and a weapon that's used by the Lord Indra. It is believed that it can destroy everything else, but nothing can destroy that Vajra, the weapon. So there are some of our habitual patterns, some of our hang-ups are very stubborn, like the Indra's Vajra, Indra's weapon, the Vajra. Almost indestructible, seemingly indestructible. And this sutra, this teaching is, this wisdom cuts even that Vajra. Now the level of the defilement, some are easy to cut and some are very difficult to cut. This is mainly because how much you are accustomed to that hang-up, such as like smoking or drinking alcohol. Right in the beginning, when you are completely new with it, easy to quit, easy to stop drinking. But if you keep on smoking or drinking, then after a while you can't do without them. Then not only physically and mentally you can't do without the smoking or drinking, but even intellectually, like you feel awkward to hang around with your normal buddies who drinks and who smokes. If you suddenly stop drinking, then you can't really relate with them. So even we realize visibly, obviously, that drinking and smoking obviously degenerates our body and our spirit. We still cannot stop. By then, your habit of smoking and habit of drinking has become quite strong. Not as strong as the Vajra though. Finally, applying a method, going to a psychiatrist or psychologist or eating, basically taking all kinds of treatment and forcing yourself stop drinking or smoking. Then what happens? you reach to the state where you no more smoking, no more drinking. Then you have some kind of a pride of being able to stop drinking and smoking. In the Vajracharika, that pride of stopping smoking and stopping drinking is like a vajra. It's really the toughest habit. Because you see, as long as you are dwelling in no smoking zone, it still means that you are haunted by once upon a time you have smoked. So this is what I mean right in the beginning. We are not saying, we are saying something a lot. We are not only saying you should not smoke, but we are also saying go beyond no smoking. And this is why Subhuti asked Buddha, can the ordinary people in the degenerated time, can they accept such kind of teachings? It's a very valuable question. It's a very understandable doubt. Because normally, most of the human beings like to hear, don't smoke, it's bad for your health. That's what we want to hear. If you hear an extra information which is go beyond this pride of being able to stop smoking, that will confuse us. Most of us will turn back and think, so are you saying that we should smoke again? Yeah. It will confuse us. Another example I can give you. The notion of hell realm. Burning, cutting, grilling, whatever, all those hideous descriptions of hell realm. Most of us, we like to hear that if you don't behave well, you will go to hell. Therefore, it's better that we behave. And even the Buddhists, they have used that method, like even painting the hell realm outside the monastery and so forth. It's much more difficult to understand when the Mahayana say, your aggression is not other than the hell. There is no external hell. And even more difficult to understand that there is no inherently existing aggression. So therefore, all the path to purify this aggression, such as love and compassion meditation, is not other than a placebo. Another example. Most of us like to hear Buddha dwell somewhere like a Western land. We prefer to think that if we pray to him, that he will shower to us all the blessings and whatever we need, and he will protect us from the problems and so forth. Easy, that's acceptable. Because then when things sort of works, when we are in a good mood, we can pray to the Buddha, which is not really different from complaining, actually. It's always good to have somebody out there where you can blame or ask for help, and if things goes wrong, blame. It's very difficult, it's much more difficult to understand that your mind is the Buddha, because that's already quite frightening, because then all the responsibility is yours. Even more frightening is the mind also does not exist. So it's very difficult to understand words like as long as there is 32 major marks, 80 minor marks, as long as there is colors and shapes of the Buddha, they are all deception, they are all fake. As long as there is none of these, then they are real. You see, as I have explained many times, in Buddhism, especially in the Mahayana Buddhism, the most important is prajna, the wisdom, primordial wisdom. All the other things such as generosity, ethic, morality, all the other comes as a secondary. And I'm not making this up. Like Shantideva said in the 9th Bodhicharya Avatar, 9th chapter, all these attributes of the infinite Bodhisattva's activity, they are all, such as generosity, all of these are taught because of the wisdom. And now, what is wisdom? That's very difficult to explain. Well, that is going to be explained in the Vajracchedika Sutra. But mainly, wisdom is, this could be my own sort of interpretation, but wisdom is a mind, our mind in its highest state of normality. Normality. And please underline the word, its highest state of normality. See, this means a lot. I mean, what is normality? How do we define normality? How do we define normality? That's the difficulty. Generally, we all look at this and think that this is a flower. And that's considered as a normal perception. And if someone comes here and starts to eat this, we will immediately think that this person needs to go to hospital. Abnormality, not normal. So that's how we define normality. Meaning that anyone whose mind is influenced by mental sickness, drugs, alcohol, then perception that's perceived by such kind of being is considered abnormal. Isn't it? That's how we consider it. That's how we define the normality, isn't it? Now, using the same logic, if we really think from a sublime being's point of view, we are all abnormal. Why? Because we have mental disease. We have passion, aggression, jealousy, pride, all of this. And therefore, all perceptions that's perceived through that is abnormal. And if you think this carefully, it is kind of true. For instance, if you really sit and think, it is incredible why people think, Louis Vuitton, right? This bag. Why it is so expensive and why it is sought after by Japanese, Chinese, especially Japanese. We don't know why. It's, if you really think properly, it's kind of abnormal. There's so many things in this world, in our day-to-day life, we do things like that. It is very abnormal that millions of people are trying to gain weight because of a certain and certain reason. Similarly, millions others trying to lose weight because of certain reasons. Most of them really don't have a profound logical reason why it should be like that. For instance, like holidays trips. We almost don't know why we do that. Couples, for instance. Because the places these days are not that distinctive or special. They don't look different. Not so much. Everywhere there's a Banana Republic, Gap, Starbucks coffee. Everywhere. It's the same thing. Body shop. Like that. Basically, it's like going to another part of the city, in your own city. And also the fashions that we see in the shops, they all look same. Maybe I'm not too sensitive, but for me, I can't really see a distinctive difference between Kenzo or Yamamoto or all this. I can't. And Other day I was sitting in the coffee shop and there's a stair and people are all walking away from me. So I could only see people's back. If I don't see people's face, they almost all look same. And when we go to holidays, we have a lot of time to bicker each other. Bickering, sort of fight. So there are things that we do in this earth that is actually quite abnormal from a really sublime being's point of view. For instance, like, if I live in this earth 80 years, that's asking quite a lot. That's being very ambitious. If I live here 80 in this earth, then more than half is gone. So the next 40 years, let's say, how many genes do I need? 20, I think, will do. And maybe about 80 t-shirts. Things like that. Actually, I can make my life quite economical if I estimate like that. But we don't shop like this, do we? Some of us, we shop as if we have 100,000 feet. Or we have 100,000 lifetimes to live. 100 shoes, that's like 100 feet, isn't it? So, all this comes from, of course, getting, we can blame it to the advertising companies, of course. But it's your mind that is not being normal. This abnormality is very good for business. If everybody become really mentally healthy, our business won't work. Nobody will want things, you see.